Good morning. I'm coming to you on Monday, the 24th of February, and I'd like to talk a little bit about Ukraine. Um, Let me start with this statement. Trump is an imbecile, but he cannot influence Ukraine. He cannot stop the Ukrainian war. That is beyond him. Putin himself will reject any ceasefire based on the current contact line. He cannot long survive accepting such a ceasefire. He will be ousted, he will be retired, either metaphorically or literally. He knows he cannot accept a ceasefire on the basis of the current front lines. He would have recognized abject failure, and Russia is being defeated. There is no question about it. Just look at the data. If you want to do a deep dive on this, look at Perun, Perun. His YouTube channel is very, very good in detailing and proving the extent of Russian losses, and they are unbelievable. The Russian military has been crushed in Ukraine. And all we have done is given Ukraine obsolete military assistance because most of the equipment we've given them has been obsolete. Bradleys, dated Bradleys, and ATACMS. They're a 1980 variant of a type of missile. We have not given the Ukrainians anything in a timely fashion nor at scale, so that while Trump is talking as he usually does from his backside, his policies don't really radically differ from those of Joe Biden. Joe Biden drip fed the Ukrainians for 3 years. The Ukrainians could have long defeated the Russians. Biden was either terrified of this bogus claim that the Russians made of escalation or nuclear use of nuclear weapons, which are beyond Putin. He cannot use nuclear weapons. There is no chance, zero chance of a nuclear strike by Russia on anybody. But he was cowed by that, and he drip fed the Ukrainians these obsolete weapons. And even with that, the Ukrainians have stopped and mangled, bled white the Russian military. That wanted military has lost 10,000 tanks, suffered about 1 million casualties, and it is on the last tether. Within a year from now, Russia will collapse if we keep supporting Ukraine with anything. And it seems like the Europeans are finally waking up and realizing that the U.S. has other foreign policy goals and that it must stand up for itself. Now, Trump is basically diminishing U.S. influence in the world by doing this, but that's his choice. Uh, Again, I think that's imbecilic and is part and parcel of Trump's abject stupidity. But again, his policies don't radically differ from Biden, since Biden tried to guarantee Putin's survival. There was a clear objective in the Biden administration not to defeat Russia, not to undermine Putin to the extent where he be ousted, because there's this non historical fear that Russia will turn to a worse option. That is not a given. In fact, in the Crimean War, after Russia's defeat in 1855, Russia turned to a reformist czar, Alexander II, not a conservative option that had previously, not the conservative option, but a reformist czar, Alexander II, realizing that there had to be changes, systemic changes in Russia in order to compete with the West. That could easily happen after the removal of Putin. But Putin is going down one way or the other, whether Trump wants it or not. Ukraine will not stop fighting. If you know anything about Ukrainian history with Russia, they'd rather be dead than Russian. And so would I. objectively looking at the situation, I would rather be dead than Russian. Russia is a aberration, historical aberration. In fact, it's not really Russia. Ukraine is the origin of Russia. Kievan Rus, with Vladimir I, who embraced orthodoxy, is essentially the origin of Russia. Muscovy, which is the seat of the current Russians, was a backwater and remained a backwater and remained under Mongol rule until the 14th century, 14th, 15th century. And they were shaped by Mongol traditions. Orlando Figes has written a wonderful book on the history of Russia where he makes that point, where he clearly cites the influence that the Mongols had on Russia. And that is, a pervasive influence on Muscovy. And that shaped the Russian mindset. It shaped its brutality and its, sense of its bloated sense of self because it was so oppressed by the Mongols. In fact, most of the words in Russian that have anything to do with punishment or suffering have a Mongol etymology, a Mongol language etymology. As I said, the days of Putin are numbered. Ukraine will not stop fighting. We have only given Ukraine, I said, obsolete equipment and about between 120 and 180 billion dollars in total aid. Only about 61 billion has gone into actual military aid. And as I mentioned, it's been rather limited and the equipment obsolete. The rest has gone into modernization of U.S. forces and other activities that are peripheral to the Ukrainian war, but not part of the Ukrainian war. So Trump is a liar when he says that that we have given Ukraine 300 billion. That's just the usual Trump pulling it out of his ass comment. But again, we have to also blame Biden for the current situation. We cannot minimize the culpability of the Biden administration in both believing the escalation claims of the Russian, which was purely hot air, and also for their overall objective, to protect Putin in place. Ukraine will win. Ukraine is winning. And as the new German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has said, Ukraine must win. The election of the German Chancellor, the CDU, Christian Democratic Union, and Christian Social Union candidate Friedrich Merz has already promised to send Ukraine Taurus missiles, unlike the spineless Olaf Scholz, and that will rain death and destruction on that Mongol aberration known as Russia. So I expect Trump's overall negotiations with the Russians to fail, and that fighting will continue for a rather long time, and that in the not too distant future, Russia will eventually collapse, and it'll be a better day for the entire world. Well, thank you for listening to me. If you like what you hear, if you found it useful, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me a lot. Thank you.